Welcome to the deep dive. We often think about these huge, complex transformations, really fundamental shifts in how big organizations work, as something mostly happening in, say, finance or tech.
Right, like Wall Street or Silicon Valley stuff.
Exactly. But the truth is, transformation isn't just happening there. It's happening, or maybe it needs to happen, in public service too.
Definitely. The pressure's on everywhere.
So today, we're going to dig into a really interesting source. It's a recent, pretty comprehensive study looking at leaders in global financial services. And the idea is to see what their journey, navigating digital transformation and all this next-gen tech can maybe teach you, working in government or the public sector.
Yeah, and this wasn't just a quick look. They surveyed over 500 tech and operations leaders, big financial firms, North America, Europe, Asia Pacific.
So these are massive institutions, right, dealing with incredible complexity, tons of sensitive data, and this constant need to adapt.
Absolutely. And while, their specific mission is different from public service, the operational challenges, modernizing technology, serving diverse needs, there's some striking similarities, real shared DNA there.
So our aim today isn't just to, list their findings. We want to really pull apart what they're seeing, figure out which hurdles are kind of universal, where the opportunities might be, and translate that directly to the world you're dealing with day to day.
Think of it like looking into a parallel universe of large-scale change and grabbing the most relevant bits for public service.
Identifying those core truths.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that apply whether you're serving bank customers or citizens.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. The study points out a pretty big shift just in the last couple of years. It wasn't that long ago that things like advanced AI models or digital assets felt a bit, well, theoretical, maybe kind of futuristic.
Sure, lots of talk, less action maybe.
But this study shows they've really moved into the mainstream investment cycle for these financial firms. There's been a definite shift from just exploring transformation to deeply embedding it and putting serious money behind it.
And the study nails what's become the new sort of center of gravity in all this. It's data strategy.
Data. Always comes back to data.
It really does. As firms push deeper into digital, they're finding that a really solid, comprehensive data strategy, that's the absolute X factor. It's the thing that unlocks all the other opportunities.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
You can have the shiniest new tech, but if your data's a mess, not organized, hard to get to, unreliable,
Yeah.
you're basically building on quicksand.
Right. And the study points to the usual suspects, the classic enemies of progress here: data silos and fragmented technology, systems bolted on over years that just don't talk to each other properly.
Does that sound familiar to anyone trying to get different government departments to work together?
It's like the universal language of pain for any large organization, isn't it? And it really comes through when the study asked these leaders about their magic wand wishes.
Oh, I like this. What do they wish for?
If they could wave a magic wand to speed up transformation, the top wishes are incredibly telling, and I bet they resonate big time with public servants.
Lay them on us.
Okay, top wishes. A single, seamless platform across the whole organization.
Yes.
Easier ways to deliver personalized experiences.
Definitely.
Immunity against cyber attacks.
Crucial.
And, the big one, a single source of trusted data.
Wow. Okay, isn't that exactly what you'd want if you were designing government services from scratch?
Yeah.
A connected system, easy and personalized citizen interactions, rock-solid security, and the ability to actually use all that data you hold.
It just highlights how those core goals, but better service, efficiency, security, are shared. But right after laying out those clear priorities, the study points out that implementation is often, uneven and inconsistent.
Okay, why? Is it just the sheer complexity, or is there something else blocking them?
The study points the finger squarely at legacy technology, the limitations of old systems.
The old tech monster.
Exactly. You've got these ambitious innovation plans, but they slam right into the reality of systems built decades ago that are expensive, inflexible, and a nightmare to integrate. There's a great quote that sums it up. If the data is not right, it's not going to be as impactful.
Right. Doesn't matter how slick the front-end portal is if the data behind it is garbage because it's stuck in some ancient mainframe.
Precisely. It's like painting a car with a broken engine. Looks okay, but doesn't go anywhere useful.
So given those hurdles, where are these firms actually putting their investment? What's the tech backbone they're trying to build?
The study highlights three main foundational areas getting the most focus and money: cloud, cybersecurity, and new to the top tier this year, AI.
Okay, let's break that down. Cloud seems massive.
Absolutely dominant. 86% are using it, 84% making moderate to large investments. It's basically seen as the utility now, the foundation, and cybersecurity.
Interesting picture there. Fuel firms are utilizing it fully, only 66%, but investment is huge. 87% are making moderate to large investments.
So they know they need it, but maybe haven't fully integrated it yet.
That's what it suggests. And that gap, that 34% who still don't have cybersecurity built into core operations, that's pretty striking, especially for finance.
Yeah.
Shows how much foundational work is still needed.
And AI.
Newer to the top list, as I said, but 57% are utilizing it already, and 80% are making moderate to large investments. So rapid adoption.
Okay, now here's a really interesting bit, especially for our listeners in public service. When they asked why tech spending was increasing, guess the number one reason.
Let me guess. Not the flashy new stuff.
Not primarily, no. The top reason, cited by 18%, was upgrading legacy technology.
There it is, the unglamorous necessary work. Isn't it just? Followed by clear evidence of business benefit, and then increased attention to cyber risks. But that focus on tackling the old systems first as the main driver for spending, that's a story that will sound incredibly familiar to anyone trying to modernize government IT.
You have to fix the foundations before you can build the shiny new house. It's the essential, often painful first step.
Necessary pain, yeah. But they're also finding room for innovation. The study projects 29% of IT spend will go towards innovation in the next 2 years, up from 22%. So it's a balancing act.
It is. But even with all that investment and this focus on data strategy we talked about, that fundamental hurdle remains. Data silos and data quality. The study is pretty blunt about this.
How bad is it, according to the numbers?
Well, only 47% of these firms feel they're effectively dealing with data silos.
Less than half.
Yeah. And 40% admit they have ongoing data quality issues. And maybe most telling, when asked if they have a clear data strategy that actually enables a return on investment, the X factor, only 58% agree they do.
Wow. So a significant chunk aren't even confident their data strategy is actually working or paying off.
Exactly. And there's another fantastic quote that captures this perfectly. Just because you've put all your data in a big lake, it doesn't mean we can all go swimming.
Huh. That's brilliant. Because just dumping everything in one place doesn't mean it's usable or accessible, right?
Precisely. The real challenge, the real value, comes from enabling those different data sets, often from totally separate systems, to actually communicate effectively. And that needs strong strategy and governance. You can't just pour it all together and hope for the best.
That data lake analogy is spot on for government too, isn't it? Different agencies collect similar data, but maybe in different formats, different systems, making it almost impossible to get that single unified view of a citizen or a situation.
And the study really highlights the pain, as they call it, of dealing with legacy systems when trying to fix this data problem. There's a quote from a global head of operations in Japan talking about the sheer difficulty of migrating or replacing old country-specific vendor systems, bridging the gap, he calls it, to modern platforms that maybe don't even have the same underlying concepts or the same level of detail in how they handle the data.
Well, that gap. I know that gap. That's where context gets lost, right? Where data gets misinterpreted, where old processes just break because the new system wasn't designed the same way.
Exactly.
Trying to move data from, say, an old system designed around paper forms in the 80s to a modern cloud platform. That's exactly the kind of headache government IT teams face.
It's a deep, fundamental challenge. Now, shifting gears slightly to something more cutting edge, Gen AI. The study suggests this is a real bright spot, moving rapidly into actual workflows.
It definitely feels like the dominant tech topic right now. What did the study find?
Huge jump in investment. 72% of firms are investing in Gen AI this year. That's up from 40% previously. It's now the third most utilized tech after cloud and cybersecurity.
Okay, and what do they expect to get from it? What's the value?
Primarily, they see the biggest impact on employee productivity, 68% said that. Then better reporting, 51%, and reducing operational costs, 50%.
Employee productivity. That's interesting.
Yeah, and the main reasons they're actually implementing it. Cost reduction and efficiency lead the way at 29%, followed very closely by improving customer experience or, citizen experience in your world at 28%, and then improving the employee experience itself at 19%.
Those are potentially huge benefits for public service, right? Freeing up staff from repetitive tasks, getting faster, maybe more accurate info to citizens, making work easier for public servants. Imagine AI helping draft standard letters or summarizing complex policy documents.
The potential is definitely there. The study also asked about ROI timelines. It's mixed. About 35% expect payback pretty quickly within 6 months.
Okay, that's fast.
But a big chunk expect it to take longer. 33% say 1 to 2 years, and 24% think 3 to 4 years. So it's powerful, but not always an instant win. Requires sustained effort.
And surely with all the hype around Gen AI, there must be concerns.
Yeah.
Barriers.
Oh, absolutely. Trust and adoption are big issues. A large majority, 74%, feel it needs more regulation.
That's high.
It is. And the main barriers cited. The tech still being seen as too immature, 57% said that. Lack of confidence in the ROI, 42%. And then regulatory constraints or internal policies holding things back, 28%.
Immature tech. What does that mean in practice?
Well, there are quotes about security risks, naturally, but also concerns about AI hallucinations.
Yes, where the AI just confidently makes stuff up.
Exactly, which is obviously a huge risk. And then critically, it comes back to data again. The absolute need for good data first. There's a quote. You need to have good data before you can use AI in an effective way.
So it loops right back. If you feed bad, inconsistent data from those siloed systems into a powerful AI,
You just generate convincing sounding nonsense faster.
which would be incredibly damaging in a public service context where people rely on that information for critical decisions or benefits.
Hugely risky. The study also briefly mentions digital assets, things like blockchain, crypto. They're becoming more mainstream in finance, lots of investment.
Right.
But while over half see relevance and accessibility, most expect more regulation. There's a quote about how if you were redesigning processes from scratch, digital assets or blockchain would definitely be on the board.
So maybe less immediately relevant for most public service functions today compared to AI or cloud, but perhaps something to keep an eye on for the future, like for secure identity or transparent record keeping.
I think that's fair, an area to watch. More immediately pressing, though, both for finance and public service, is operational resilience.
The ability to withstand and
Absolutely.
recover from disruption, yeah, especially cyber attacks, system failures.
Exactly. We saw cybersecurity as a top investment area, and this is why. The threat is real and constant. But the study found this really interesting disconnect.
What's that?
High confidence, but maybe shaky reality. 82% are confident in their recovery plans.
Sounds good.
So it was okay. But when asked about actual estimated recovery times, it was all over the place. Only 37% said they could recover within hours.
Only 37%. Where were the others?
33%, a third, said 2 to 3 days. And a worrying 30% estimated recovery would take a week or even more.
A week or more. That's huge. For public services, that kind of downtime directly impacts people's lives. Think about accessing benefits, emergency information, essential services.
Absolutely. A system being down for a week is not just an IT problem, it's a major public impact event. Knowing those recovery times accurately is critical.
And legacy systems play a role here too.
Big time. 46%, almost half, agree that legacy systems actively hinder their resilience efforts. And with new regulations emerging, like DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act in Europe, which sets strict standards,
I've heard of that.
only 48% feel ready to comply.
So even in finance, which you'd think would be hyper-focused on this, less than half feel ready for resilience regulation.
It shows how tough it is. And there's a quote that sums up the shift in thinking. It's no longer a conversation about if an attack will happen, but will we be ready when it happens?
That's a powerful shift. From prevention alone to assuming it will happen and focusing on preparedness and rapid recovery. That feels incredibly relevant for government services too.
It really does.
Okay, let's talk about personalization. In finance, that's about tailoring services for clients. How does that translate to public service?
It's about delivering those seamless, customized experiences for citizens, right? Based on their actual needs, their situation, their history with different services, making interactions easier, more relevant.
That's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what's holding it back? Let me guess.
You got it. Silos. Again, 59% agree that siloed departments, siloed data, and siloed technology are the biggest blockers to personalizing engagement effectively.
And it's not just connecting the systems, it's figuring out what to personalize.
Yeah, over half, 52%, find actually personalizing the content itself the most difficult part.
The study had a great, kind of frustrating example of this, didn't it?
The paperless one, yes. 57% of firms admit they're still sending print communications to clients who specifically asked to go paperless.
Why? Just because the systems don't talk.
Exactly. The system managing paperless preferences is separate from the system sending out print mail. They're not connected.
That is such a perfect, tangible example of the silo problem. And so relatable to government. How many times does a citizen have to provide the same information to different agencies? Or get communications about a service they don't use or need?
It's often because those different departments operate in their own worlds with their own systems, and there's no single view of the citizen or their preferences.
There's another quote capturing that, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's very rare to find a level of digital maturity where the various business lines and their discrete platforms are truly connected. That applies just as much when you think about different government departments running on separate, often ancient systems.
So ultimately, this study kind of gives a reality check, doesn't it, on this whole transformation journey?
It does. While 30% of firms see themselves as overall leaders in digital maturity,
Okay.
that number drops quite a bit, down to 26% when you ask about leadership in specific operational areas, things like regulatory compliance or product management or middle office functions.
Ah, so it's maybe easier to have the big picture vision than it is to get all the messy, granular operational details right.
That's exactly it. And the views from the front line section, where they did follow-up interviews, really brings this home.
What do people say?
You hear from a head of transformation talking about dealing with a huge legacy information system and a series of multiple different systems with very few integrations, and how that makes it incredibly difficult to launch new, joined-up services.
That sounds painfully familiar for anyone working in large government IT structures, just trying to connect the dots.
Yep, totally. And another head of operations talks again about that pain of migrating legacy systems, because the new systems often lack the same data concepts or the same level of detail, that fundamental mismatch we talked about.
Right, the gap again.
But maybe the most relatable quote, especially thinking about public sector realities, comes from a CIO.
Okay, what did the CIO say?
They said, very candidly, that their tech teams are basically consumed by audit remediation, regulatory responses, upgrading our technology, and upgrading our data.
So keeping the lights on, fixing problems, meeting compliance demands.
Exactly. Because of all the scrutiny and the state of their old tech. And this leaves very little bandwidth for doing, quote, stuff in AI and other funky tech.
Wow, that just hits home, doesn't it? That's the reality for so many in public sector IT. The constant pressure to patch, secure, comply, just manage the old infrastructure. It eats up resources and really limits the ability to truly innovate or even explore promising new things like AI. The daily grind versus a future vision.
It's a huge tension. And the study acknowledges this. There's a simple line. It's hard because it's hard.
Sometimes it really is that simple.
But it also emphasizes that firms, despite all these difficulties, are pushing through. They know this work is necessary, even if it's incredibly tough.
So let's bring this all together. Thinking about you, our listener in public service, what are the key takeaways from this whole deep dive into how finance is tackling transformation?
Well, I think the core message is pretty clear. Digital transformation, whether you're in banking or government, it's complex, it's challenging, and the biggest roadblocks are often the least glamorous things, wrestling with those deeply embedded legacy systems, untangling fragmented data.
Right. It's not just about the cool new app.
Not at all. Success means investing in those foundational technologies. Cloud, cybersecurity are non-negotiable, and then smartly integrating new capabilities like AI. But the vision has to connect with the operational reality on the ground. You have to get things like resilience, personalization, and critically, that underlying data, right?
So the lessons for public service seem really potent.
Yeah.
That absolute need for a clear data strategy, the massive drag that silos create, the non-negotiable focus on strong cybersecurity, the huge potential but also the real hurdles of AI, and always keeping that goal in mind, delivering seamless, citizen-focused services.
And realizing that true transformation doesn't just come from setting big, shiny goals or chasing the latest tech trend. It's fundamentally about systematically changing how work gets done, evolving those operational workflows. And often that starts with the really hard, painstaking work of cleaning, connecting, and governing the data underneath it all.
It's like fixing the plumbing before you renovate the house.
Exactly. It's the operational plumbing that actually enables the slick digital facade to work properly. The real victory often comes from diligently fixing those detailed, maybe even invisible operational foundations.
That's where the hard yards are done.
And arguably where the biggest, most sustainable impact can eventually be unlocked.
Okay, so let's leave you with a final thought, building on everything we've discussed today. Given these shared challenges, The legacy systems, the data silos, that constant tension between daily demands and the need to innovate. Consider this. What single specific operational detail in your area of public service?
Mm.
Maybe it's a process bottleneck you hit every day, a specific data inconsistency that drives everyone crazy, or a manual step that needs constant workarounds. If you could address that one thing systematically, completely, what could unlock the biggest, most tangible transformation impact for the citizens you serve?
What's that small, persistent grain of sand in the machine that, if removed, could make the biggest difference?
Something to think about as you navigate your own transformation journey. That's been our deep dive today, looking at transformation finance, but hopefully with some real insights for public service. We hope it's given you some fresh perspectives.